Hi everyone, I'm Kadia and welcome back to my channel, Nobody Told Me. This episode is particularly challenging for me. It was hard to put my thoughts and feelings down on paper, harder to record and edit, and it's even harder to share. But the reason I created this channel was to be able to talk about the uncomfortable things we don't want to talk about. So here is one of my uncomfortable stories. Mine was my first trimester. After my morning sickness period had passed, I had an amazing pregnancy. My skin glowed, my hair grew, I maintained the best diet I had ever had in my life. Eating 3 square meals a day, getting in all the important food groups, and I even exercised regularly. I felt amazing. My vitals were amazing and my baby girl was perfect. And to top it all off, my husband was super caring and extremely supportive. What else in the world could any pregnant woman want? I delivered the most perfect little girl. And then my world turned upside down. I couldn't place a finger on it, but I could feel a difference within me. I loved my little girl and couldn't bear to be away from her for a second. So I knew it wasn't postpartum depression. After all, how they show PPD in the movies is that you'll hate the baby, right? But I love my little girl and I just wanted to get myself back on track with my body and basically just life. The physical healing process that your body goes through after childbirth is one thing. The psychological process is a whole other story. I found myself buying sexy clothes because somehow I thought I just needed to be appealing to my husband again. Not that he ever said I wasn't. I just thought that I needed to be. And then I started to feel jealous. He always had a lot of female friends who, not only did I know them, I even encouraged him to maintain their friendships. But then, all of a sudden, I started to get suspicious of how much time he spent on his phone or how late he seemed to be working. Mind you, his habits really hadn't changed. He was doing the same things at that point that he did before. But for me, he seemed different. And I didn't and couldn't realize at the time that it was actually me who was different. I mean, I felt something. I felt off center. The Kadia I was used to wasn't the same person looking back at me in the mirror. And I couldn't figure out what was different. So I did some deep research in my Google library, of course, on mood swings and, what can happen after pregnancy. And it turned out that I was going through some type of postpartum depression. Some days I felt like I didn't have anybody who cared for me. I would check my call logs and messages and I'd get upset because I didn't think the people in my life were checking in on me enough. I picked arguments with my husband because I was angry at him too. I thought he should be doing more to help me with the baby and I just kept lashing out at him for one reason or another. And then the more arguments I picked, the less engaged he was. So the feeling I had of him not caring or doing enough actually started to manifest into reality because I was pushing him away. And anybody who knows us know that my husband and I, we're inseparable. We're like two peas in a pod. He's my best friend, and I like to think that I'm his. But at that time, I felt like I had lost my best friend. Now, while all of these helter-skelter emotions are ravaging my brain and my body, I have a newborn that I'm taking care of, which means that I'm getting very little sleep. And I highly doubt that any mom gets more than 4 hours of sleep when they have a newborn. So I was going through all of this for months, hoping that things would just work themselves out and everything would go back to normal. But how can there be any normal when, while going through my own psychological torment, never before had I felt so emotionally and physically insecure. Never before had I been so needy of attention. Never before had I cared as much about what people thought or didn't think. And never before had I ever fought with my husband the way I did. The things I said and did are still things I cringe at when I think about them. I never knew I was as capable of the mental and psychological abuse that I put not only him through, but myself through. There came a point where it was just too much to bear. And I just started talking about what I was feeling. And this happened to be with an older female friend who also told me that she went through similar things after giving birth to her son. And then I realized I wasn't crazy. I wasn't alone in what I was feeling. It was at that point that I started the reconciliation and recovery process with myself and my husband. It wasn't easy. The arguments didn't go away overnight. But the acknowledgement that something was wrong was a big step in the process. The next big step was reconciling that it takes two to tango. Each of us contributed to the problems we were having, even if I was the more contentious partner. We both had a role to play in how our relationship unraveled during that time. The mood swings and hormonal issues going on inside my brain, those eventually stopped. But I had to make a conscious and concerted effort as well to not allow the thoughts brought on by these mood swings to control me. I had to learn to separate the things I thought versus the things I know to be true. For example, I thought my husband was cheating, but I know to be true that my husband loves me and respects our marriage. So I had to kill the negative thought by replacing it with a positive thought that was one that I know to be true. And that helped me in a major way. I also had to rebalance and recenter myself, my consciousness, and my self-esteem. I had to learn to love myself all over again. Love the new Kadia with her belly stretch marks, pudge, and double chin. And I also had to relearn that having a body goal didn't mean that I was ugly, fat, and unattractive. It simply meant that I prefer to be able to run up a flight of stairs without panting, and would love to be able to fit into my sexy black dress from 5 years ago. And in the same breath, I also had to learn to be okay with the reality that I may never ever again be able to wiggle into that little black dress. So I just need to get a new one, 2 sizes up. And that's okay, because I'm still the amazing, beautiful, sexy, and intelligent woman I always was. Just a little more experienced and a little wiser. And a lot of times, wisdom and experience come with a few pounds and some turmoil. It surely was the most challenging period of my life, but I've survived it. My marriage survived it, and I think that we're stronger now for what we've been through. A lot of us new moms, we sit and we go through these emotional and psychological issues on our own because we're ashamed of talking about it, thinking that no one will understand or it will make you seem weak and vulnerable. Not everyone will understand, but there are people who do, and we owe it to ourselves to be the best we can be, and sometimes that can only happen if we ask for help. Seek out people who you believe would understand, and if there's nobody like that in your life, then seek out a counselor or psychologist, someone who can help you to better understand the things you're going through and help you to navigate them to the other side. Also, whoever said showing weakness and vulnerability was forbidden? Many times, it's only in our weakness and vulnerability that we learn who really care for us and mean us well, who our friends and supporters really are. My period of mental instability, brought on by the drastic changes in hormones which happened after I gave birth, can happen at any stage of pregnancy and for any major life event like death of a loved one. We will all go through periods in our life where our mental strength is challenged. That is not to be treated as a sin never to be spoken about. We must seek help and advice to help us through it. It is the strongest of us who can admit that sometimes we are weak. Thank you for watching. Like, subscribe, and see you soon. Take care.